Yeah.
You're very familiar with Bear.
Sure.
And I have to run and grab a power cord from my computer. I will be right back. But
Thanks
Bear, in the room we have Jim Tate, and then Wayne Singer's joined Jim Tate as well. He's been assisting, and he was one of the first folks that got certified with Jim, or that he helped certify.
Yeah. We're probably working with somewhere between 20 and 30 vendors going through 2014 right now. So everybody's kind of coming up against these bumpy new areas of 2014. Bear, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, this is Bear.
Yeah. Who did y'all certify with last time around? Who was that? Was it Drummond or CC? Yeah, Tony went to get a power cord. I thought maybe you remember. I don't remember.
Tony, let me see. Who was it? What are some of the?
CCHIT.
No.
Drummond.
Nope. No.
ICSA.
No.
InfoGuard.
InfoGuard. That was it.
Okay. They're still around.
Yeah, we were actually got some advice from them on this already.
Okay, good.
Sorry about that. This conference will go a lot longer now that I've got power.
Okay, good. That's a good thing. Well, first of all, let me ask you something. And so is this a standalone application? You're going to get certified clinical decision support? That will be used by other applications? Okay.
In fact, would it be reasonable for me to, maybe it might be good at this point just to give you a quick little demo of what this does.
So I was going to suggest that, Tony. I think without having a demo, they're not going to have any context.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go ahead and do that. So the ASAM criteria software is uses an algorithm that's been standardized for the I should have the name memorized. I'll defer to Bear can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the American Society of Addictive Medicine, and it's used to kind of standardize how you take information on a user and then ultimately provide a level of care recommendation. At the level of care recommendation, what they found is there's different degrees of level of care that you can have for a patient, and it's been found that if when doctors have a care recommendation that's lower than the software, the patients don't tend to have successful outcomes with their treatment. So basically, what we're finding is that the software provides a minimal recommendation. Let me go ahead and just kind of show you kind of what this system produces, and then you can take a look at how it works. But basically, this system produces guidance that right now it looks like this report. The most important thing that's all based on, and we'll step through the gaps, but it basically provides you, guidance, lots of information, but basically we recommend that you place them in, for level 4 treatment. There's a bunch of other different facts that it tells you, but basically, and it does take information. For example, now this is DSM-4, but we assume that there's a mapping between DSM-4 and soon to be DSM-5 and SNOMED, where it takes in information on the patient that you provided, some of the problems that they have with alcohol and opioids as defined by DSM, which obviously we need to map to SNOMED. It shows, I'm trying to think of what else would be relevant.
Sure. No, I gotta get it. How does the data get in here? What's the
So the way that they get into it is let me go ahead and show you. So it's disconnected, but we are envisioning that this would need to be integrated with an EHR, like pull in information from an EHR. I've got that noted in the gaps. Takes a minute for our production site to warm up here. The password will be David Gasfrin and ABC123.
Okay. And so this application, is it in production? It's out there being used right now?
It is currently, yes, it's currently being used. It's in beta stages. It's currently being used by pretty extensively. The most active pilot we have is Milwaukee Behavioral Health Division, and they've generated over 22 level of care recommendations on their current patients.
And is this in conjunction with an EHR, or is this independent?
This is currently independent.
Okay.
However, in order for this to, for meaningful use certification, we somehow have to get EHR information incorporated.
Yeah, no, that's good. I just wondered if your beta included a kind of an interface with an existing EHR, but no, that's fine.
Yep, no interface at this point.
Okay.
So this is currently what the assessment looks like. There's, different sections in there, general information. Some are germane, to health items. In fact, medical history, let me give you a tour here. Here you have some vital signs that are collected, trying to find the blood pressure.
Okay.
I thought that was okay.
Sure,
so,
yeah, blood pressure, yeah. What about height and weight? Do you gather that, body mass index, and that? Or just
there currently is not height and weight.
Okay.
However, the doctor said, Dr. Gasfrin, our subject matter expert, said, if there's an item, and I went over, there are some items that are required by meaningful use that the algorithm is not using, and he said he would be able to provide guidance on that.
Sure.
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so that the report would, show different information based on certain medications that they're on, because there is a portion in there where you can tell information about yourself. In the drugs and alcohol section, they do ask about different substances you're using.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the way this works is a probing and a branching logic, so we'd want to just make sure when we're demoing it that we hit it correctly. As you, the way the software works, as you select issues, opioids were already selected, these are probing, are branching questions, so as you select some of these items, the more questions build out on the assessment. I guess we've already selected everything there.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So then, oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just no. Go ahead. Yeah, I'll say the question. Yeah.
So then, once this algorithm has all the information it needs, there's a submit button that. This is how it currently works. There's a submit button that takes all the data about the patient, including some of it, problem information and vitals, and then it provides a decision as to what type of care that you should provide to the patient. In this case, it's displayed as a PDF.
Okay. And so do you and so every EHR out there is going to have a rudimentary, probably not very good clinical decision support. And do you think somebody would plug in yours and use it instead of the other one, and you want to get certified so they'll still be eligible for the mean of use incentives? Is that the kind of the business plan, or why do you want to get certified? Do you think people will use this, as a plug-in module to their EHR?
Well, that's a very good question. The main reason why we think folks will use this is, and we are talking with several different insurance providers, presently, where they would go ahead and instantly approve level of care recommendations from the software. many times when, it says, we need, you need to, if you leave this office right now, you will relapse, and it's immediately, you must start treatment right now.
Sure. Sure.
They can't do it because it's not approved, and it messes up, it makes the outcomes not as successful. And the reason why people would use this would be clinicians that would like to have the ability to, especially when it says this person needs to be an inpatient immediately, have the authorization to do it immediately as well. So the main market really is the folks that, that's one main reason why we think they would use it, but the providers also like it just because it makes a standard report.
Tony,
but, go ahead there.
I just want to add on, I think what I heard Jim asking was, why is meaningful use certification for this application important? And it is more a credibility and meeting state and region imposed criteria, I think, more than anything. So I don't think we're the purpose in doing this isn't necessarily to put out a full-blown clinical decision support module somebody would plug in order to get their system certified. If we don't have one, we'll plug this one in. But it's more of where we have a number of potential balls in the air with opportunities. One of them is a state, and basically everything, all the systems that they require for healthcare going forward have to be certified. So in order for them to use this, they have to be certified. So that's more of the reason why we need to stamp on it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought you were going, and that's the reason, because even if people don't know what it means or if it's appropriate, it's in that request for a proposal. It must be certified.
Yeah.
Now, we'll get into the details of things here in a minute, but quite possibly your application goes way beyond the functional requirements of the certification, and we'll talk about that, and again, how data gets in there, and how flags are generated and things like that, alerts are generated, can be shown one way during certification and used much differently during the actual production out there. That doesn't really matter. Sorry, go ahead.
You've used the term, theater. There's for the certification, it's a little bit different.
Right, exactly. And for 2014, one thing that's new is a lot of the different modules, part of the attestation has to be done to get certified is you have to do a focus group and record all kind of data. You do not have to do it for clinical decision support, so that's good. But are you thinking about possibly maybe certifying some security modules underneath this? You don't have to. For 2011, we had to do some security. For 2014, you could just certify that clinical decision support module and nothing else.
Probably not at this time.
Yeah, sure. Just do it clean and go right forward. And so, I think for right now, I've seen enough of the application. But,
one question, is this all provider entered, or is there a combination of, self-paced questions from patients and then provider validated, or what's the workflow?
The person that it is always right now, and this is evolving, but right now it's a clinician. The provider is, entering all the information, and it's intended for them to do this while they're actually, with the patient. So some questions are, the providers just put it in there. It's based on the provider's observation, blood pressure. Some are, ask them to observe it, and then other questions are more dialogue-based, questions where they, they collect this information from the patient, but there's training for being able to, acquire this information from the patient. As some of these questions are very sensitive, to some of them are a little bit more general, like,
and then the other question I had was, when you mentioned that they were branching questions, are those branching questions based on, again, is there a protocol that requires in some cases that the branching question comes up, or is it just drilling down on a specific, like the opioids, and then it says, okay, which opioids? Or does it say, opioids, and then, you know, again, that there's some rule to why they have to drill down or branch to the next one.
There is a rule. I mean, it's and this is this algorithm, and this is what the software is trying to make easier. There's a book that describes, you know, this algorithm of how you should or should not ask up to 1,200 questions. Okay. Only 400 are what you're required, and what our software does is it kind of, you know, serves up the questions that you would have to ask as an alternative to being necessarily familiar with the, you know, as well versed with the algorithm. This one, is there an algorithm? Yes, and it's determined by the American Society of Addictive Medicine.
Okay.
And then
Perfect.
Here's an example of a branching question. Under used substances, there's no questions to ask. But I am going to go ahead and hit alcohol. And alcohol is going to cause some other questions to branch.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other questions, like under psychological, where they'll ask you questions, you know, that'll branch. Have you done something within the past year? Like, have you ever felt blues in your lifetime? And if you say extremely, they say, well, last month. And we said, no, not at all. It just stops there. But if you said, yeah, considerably last month, well, then it'll ask you again. You know, it'll probe a little bit more. Last 24 hours. And this one, it doesn't matter, I don't think. You have no further questions here.
Okay, and now, and this is where so we can get to the end game of advising on this. So when it said, you know, lifetime, they said extremely, and then they said last month, and then it generated the next level down. Is that based on these, you know, ASMA recommendations that you drill down?
This will result in producing the recommendation. So
okay.
Right now, this whole screen is trying to collect data points for the recommendation. There can be up to 1,200 data points needed for the recommendation. And what I was envisioning, and you'll see it on the gaps, is that, and we're trying to do this in many portions, is try to reduce the amount of data entry that's going into this one. So if this is able to perhaps import information from a, you know, from an EHR, well, some of the information will then, you know, could be potentially pre-populated from there. And then we're also looking to map this to other assessments to, you know, make it easier for the end user to populate those data points.
Right. And I'm just getting to the point of saying, if this was rules-based, that might have to be treated different in a clinical support, you know, satisfying the clinical support item, whether it's just good follow-up questionnaires to drill down to the final rule, and then that is where you get your, you know, your alert, your trigger. But then what I'm getting at is this bibliographic references.
Okay.
You know, how many places you'd need to put it.
Well, I guess I was thinking that our demonstration of the, you know, of the clinical decision port is really at the patient, like this Joanne Jones. See which assessment, you know. So this assessment right here, we'll just submit it again. I'm thinking the in terms of annotation. Let me pull up the report here. I've got two screens going on. Oh, there it is. And we can put in citation, but right now we have the American Society of Addictive Medicine. This is what we have, but if there's a standard format, we certainly can follow it. And this one literally comes from a book, and so perhaps we could even use that as the guidance. In fact, on that part, let me show you. We have this appendix shows, you know, this gives, you know, this is the ASAM. They've renamed it. It's just now the ASAM criteria. But is this? These are all the folks we're working with. Dr. Gasfriend. Would we have something like that for the bibliographic citation?
Well, it'd actually have to be the not just who did it, but literally what is said. You know, I mean, the citation.
Direction to a page in a white paper, or, you know, something like that.
You know,
okay. Yeah. We're partnered with a company that publishes the algorithm, and so we probably direct.
Yeah, there's no question. You have a solid bibliography reference Now you just have to drill them down. Like if you said on this person, you needed these kinds of help based on all the decision tree above, you needed to be whatever, admitted immediately. What drives that? What paragraph or what sentence in this book says people who are scoring at a whatever it is, 300 or higher, or however it's been deemed scored, 300 or higher needs to be admitted immediately. 200 or less needs to whatever. Whatever those things are. If there's a chapter statement in the book, then you're there.
Okay, and that's the part where it is. I know the book provides the guidance on there. I don't know if it's as how we might need to engage someone who's more of an expert with the algorithm on that, but it is all based. That's how we came up with the algorithm. So
yeah, and see, it's not unlike in the medical world. The other side of this, when if you got a lab value greater than X, you do Y, and then who says that? American Academy of Diabetes or endocrinology or So.
Yeah, because right now, like we've got a link right here if you to find out more about these items. So we might need to have some proper citing at some point, like they'll find a level of care recommendation. If we find something in the book, we could say refer to the ASAM criteria book.
Yeah, and it could be page 23, chapter 1.
Okay.
It just helps them, it's not just pointing to a book on the shelf. It actually kind of gets them right into the, the area.
Let me go ahead and just update that.
But the way you've done it there with, those hyperlinks and all that, that's great.
Yep.
Okay, so so I'm just going to put in the notes here.
And the good news is they're not going to grade you on the, again, significance of the citing. They're just going to grade you on the, I guess, what box you've drawn to them.
I see. They are not going to read the book and see, if they agree with what the book says. But
exactly.
You do need to reference that this is in fact, based upon a publication, this book here.
And like I say, you've got a real strong one. People are getting by with, medical director protocol says to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because from what I saw here, I was almost wondering if we could just grab bibliographic information from the book and just put it in there, but it should be finer grained down to the page.
Yeah, and it should also differentiate if this comes up and says this person is bipolar, then you should give diagnostic reference. This person needs methadone, then you should be therapeutic reference. Okay. That's what they say when there's a distinction between diagnostic and therapeutic bibliographic references. It's, and in some cases, if you're doing both, it's this book's chapter and verse. I guess how did you get to the score? How did you get to the evaluation? That this, whatever actions needed, you should just tell yourself: does this tell me? Would this hold up in court to say this is what RAT was driving me to do? If a doc did it and they failed and he got sued, would that reference give them the bibliographic justification that cited that trigger event?
And so it's a justification, would you set for therapeutic or what?
Yeah, well, therapeutic would be, again, any like medication, if they're going to, I guess, I don't know, in your world, if they're doing, any kind of, I don't know, if there's hypnosis or, if there's like a smoking cessation, if there's some treatment that they're going to go through, that's the therapy. And if it comes down to a diagnosis, bipolar, panic, anxiety, then that's where you point them to the what made you, what's referencing that this score is what is indicative of a bipolar disorder.
Okay, so we need justification for either the therapeutic recommendation, which is go to level 4 treatment, or diagnostic determination, which is, if there was such a thing in there saying you are an alcoholic or something like that.
That's right, yeah. And that's where you get your SNOMED references backwards, is, SNOMED has both procedure-oriented and obviously problem codes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so right now, we, from a mapping perspective, could incorporate problems in, pull a problem off of this. We'd need to just figure out how we'd want to map the problems to. There's only, it's been simplified, there's only 5 DSM problems.
Wow,
so it's
that's
a
nice.
smaller set, so it wouldn't be a huge mapping activity.
Yeah, wow, that's very good.
So I wasn't sure what we had for the agenda. So we are seeking guidance on the clinical decision support, as well as wanted to get education on 2014 meaningful use.
Sure.
I could take you through my gap analysis, or we could switch over to you, Jim, and do your meaningful use.
Yeah, well, let's try on that. Let's talk a little bit more about clinical decision support while we're right here.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about what was required in 2011 and the big change to 2014. So for 2011, there were 4 data elements: problem list, med list, medication allergy list, and the and lab test. And so we had to have enough clinical decision support rules and alerts that would cover all 4 of those data items. Many vendors did 1 rule. If the patients over 50 had heart disease on a lipid report, had LDL over 110, then pop up some alert. And that was it. Now, and that will get you certified. Now, for 2014, of course, we've got a couple more data elements. And so we have to have a rule for each of the data elements, plus we have to pick 2 of those to do a combination to demonstrate. Still have to show that alert, but as we just discussed in detail, we're going to have that bibliographic citation, and we have to also show that the alert is being fired not only during data entry, but when a lab result is finalized, or when we incorporate data from a CCDA. So those are going to be some kind of interesting areas to see how we could, demonstrate incorporating the CCDA or have a lab result finalized that would generate an alert of some kind.
And what was the last one? What was the last one? Alerts fired with lab results finalized?
Yeah, that's right. There's a kind of an interoperability file called a CCDA. Yep. It was called, that's right. And so for 2014, we have to show that when data is incorporated from a CCDA, that would generate an alert.
For your system, it'd be interesting if the lab data could be a drug screen showing positive for those meds that you choose, or those elements or substances that you check for.
You and Dr. Gassman are on the same page. He thought the same thing.
Yeah.
or lithium level. I don't know if that still matters anymore. People do lithium or liver function tests. Probably do those from time to time. Make sure you're not wiping. Yeah, but those kind of things. And so and again, this would be the certification theater part that we would show that. But out there in the real world, nobody's in your field is probably for years is going to be incorporating those CCDAs. But we got to show it during certification.
But that could help your marketing of this to the outside world to say, talk about, you do the drug screen and that pops in. That's better than asking the patient and or observing. You got clinical data that says, this guy has a substance problem.
Yeah, and anything standardized is pretty neat stuff, because I guess at this point these care recommendations are kind of made uniquely and in their own format and not necessarily in a standard form. And some of the enthusiasm from the larger counties, they like the fact that all the care recommendations look the same, and perhaps maybe the ability to pull in patient records and those all look the same too might have that similar perception.
So you know, we'll go into the details of the gaps y'all identified in just a minute. But yeah, the main thing to me about is how we get the data in. It's going to trigger alerts. You know, that's yeah, that's what I'm thinking about right now. So yeah.
Okay. Well, the feedback does not necessarily need to be a PDF, but we can. So, Jim, were you thinking that wanted to just kind of jump you through, and I could show you my findings, and you could validate the gaps?
Please.
Okay.
Yep. Let's pull it up and talk way through them. Yep.
All right. So the bottom line, I was you know, asked us to take a look, and could we, in its current state, certify for meaningful use? And I took a look at the software, and I found 3 significant gaps. One is we need the ability to interoperate with an EHR because there's no way to get that data incorporated without that. So I found 5 gaps. We need the ability to use that information from an EHR to provide our therapeutic guidance. I found 4 gaps. And then last one, and maybe this was incorrect how I did it, but basically there's a security requirement where you need to put in some rule where the clinical decision support works differently for different people, and you can modify it, and that's what I meant. And I'll go into detail on that security requirement there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look at that. So yeah, let's go down to those. Yeah, that first 5 gaps. Okay. Yeah.
So these are the 5 interoperability gaps. So the ASAM software doesn't have any way to access EHR data. So there's 2 recommendations that I had here. One is to use this URL context-aware information retrieval standard to pull information from an EHR, and then REM, the system that you helped us get certified last time, give the ability for that system to be able to respond to a URL-based context-aware retrieval standard, so it would serve up our test patient. The issue that would resolve is this number right here, which basically says we need our guidance based on problems, medications, allergies, demographics, lab tests, and vital signs.
Right, and so you know, an info button, which is what you're talking about there, is one way to do it. But we've seen a number of modules, standalone modules, get certified, and however we create a file, whether it's an info button standard or just a standard HL7 of some other kind, and jam it in there, you know, that's fine. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, the EHRs are working overtime to be able to export a CCDA, a pretty comprehensive CCDA file, and it would be interesting if you just are in a point to import that information and then parse out what you need or only what you need.
Because that would take care of the need that it would generate an alert on the incorporation of a CCDA. That'd kill 2 birds right there.
Yeah.
The info button, using the info button standard?
No, we wouldn't be using the info button standard at all.
Oh, what are you recommending?
Well, in 2011 there was a file called the CCD or CCR. Now it's the CCDA. And it's just a certain type of file structure with one patient's information in there, codified. And so we could have some way to import that into your system, and that would, you know, trigger alerts, which is good. But also, one of the required things we have to do is trigger alerts when we incorporate a CCDA. You're going to have to do it anyway.
So we do need to get a CCDA regardless.
Yeah, you don't have to generate one, but you do have to incorporate it and show that during incorporation alerts fire.
And the format that the other thing that's happening with 2014 is most every provider, at least the providers who's using certified software, will have a direct email address. And when I say direct, it's under the direct protocol. And so your providers would have them too, and that's the way that they can exchange this information. You know, in other words, it'd be like a glorified email with the CCDA attachment on that patient. And if your EHR or your component here have, you know, now ready to import, yes, and it's, you know, it gets parsed into the appropriate area, because cognitive status is part of that what do you call it, the CCDA, the labs are, so if they had a drug screen, it would be there.
So we have to incorporate a CCD regardless, so it wouldn't be part of CCDA. So we probably, is there any benefit for doing anything with the CCD if we have to do a CCDA anyways?
No.
Right.
So we probably wouldn't be advisable. Whatever we do, it should either be option one, get a CCDA with this info button, or get a CCDA from an EHR using Direct.
Yeah, and I'm not sure the info button has any issue.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something else.
Yeah.
That's not directly related to the CCDA.
You know what the info button could be used for is the link to your bibliographic references, but I mean it doesn't have to be.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So that's that context-aware button.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So back to CCDA, you don't have to generate one, which is good. But for clinical decision support, you're going to have to incorporate one. And so it'd be great to use that as a method in which you mimic the EHR out there pumping info into you. I mean, I think that'd be very clear to demonstrate during certification. Of course, all this would be explained to the certification body ahead of time, so it wouldn't be a surprise. I love that idea, CCDA.
Jim, in terms of the CCDA in theater, could we demonstrate retrieving a CCDA without necessarily demonstrating that an EHR is creating it?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay,
yep,
so
because you know what, you will be getting a CCDA script as part of the data. So it's assuming it's created, and it's assuming it's of the format and style that comes from a certified EHR.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
So
we don't even need the EHR. We need the CCDA file.
For the theater, we can say, yes, we are going to get a CCDA from REM. We will, use either a URL or an HTTP post, send it to REM, and whatever it is, the response is going to be a CCDA file that could have just been sitting there waiting for us.
Exactly. Sure.
Okay. Excellent. Well, that'll make it easier to test. And so right there in the real world, you demonstrate it, and you use the CCDA as one of the methods you use to demonstrate triggering these alerts. But out in the real world, it's not going to be happening that way in 2014. Your docs, your provider's not going to be importing those and generating alerts based off it. But that's okay, because the only thing that they really want to make sure is that you have the functionality. For going forward. Yeah. Jim, would it be good? Could I say then that you're validating that first recommendation?
The first recommendation is
use the URL to get a CCDA, and then just use our.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. The URL. So how are you going to import it from a URL? I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, if I gave you a CCDA, the file, could you import it into your system in some way?
What I'm thinking, and you may here, so you could perhaps answer that one, is that if Jim gave us a CCDA, could you do something in REM so if we pass a URL like this to REM that it would always return the CCDA file that Jim gave us?
We can modify REM.
Okay.
Yeah, it would need a modification. I'm not aware you can do it from URL, but yeah,
there's a few different ways they let you do it. If so you're limited with a URL that you can only use 874 characters, so you can't have a very descriptive query. If you do it from the post, you're unlimited with what you can query.
And technically, I guess just to see how you do it, it has to be under some degree of. It is protected patient information, so you'd have to that file would have, even though it's in a CCDA format, that would be very easy to convert. So it has to take into consideration where it's
for number one, my recommendation, kind of consensus almost, is just use a CCDA for that EHR data.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And and we don't have to create one. We create some sample ones to demonstrate during the test. And we've got, and you may have access to them, but Wayne especially has tons of samples. We've got a lot of resources. But since you're not having to generate them, that's great. But we can give you valid ones.
Sweet. So we don't need to necessarily generate it.
Not right, zero. No need at all for this, which is good, because then you don't have to validate it.
That's right.
Are y'all on a particular timeline? End of the year, end of October?
For
That's a
doing
fair
the actual
question.
certification?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, we need to take an estimate for funding, but
Okay.
so we don't actually have a date yet.
Okay. Sure.
All right. The next gap is the
Yes.
HM criteria software doesn't use SNOMED terminology to describe problems. It uses DSM terminology to describe problems. And so what I was recommending is the portion that, where we show the DSM, problems. We could have a mapping or something like that. Well, basically, what do we need to do? I was thinking that we map these DSM terms to SNOMED, and when we're getting certified, somehow we show SNOMED. We somehow need to demonstrate SNOMED, and how do you?
No. Well, see, first of all, the good news is you're going to be in this CCDA that we're talking about. That's going to come in a SNOMED format. So that's where you're going to start wanting it, and then
So we don't have to demonstrate it on the computer screen saying, "See, we took this," or
no. Your database. They'll want to see where in your database tables the SNOMED. If it's mapped, it can be mapped fine, but it's not at the user interface side. But as long as what you're capable of interpreting, in a human readable format is the SNOMED codes.
So we just need to demonstrate that we are using the SNOMED code from the CCDA for our recommendation we're providing.
Right, because there's no outbound. Yeah, because
There's not. You seem to be able to recognize them coming in. Yeah, because a valid CCDA is going to have SNOMED coded in it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't doubt that DSM is going to come to you also. They're in the same environment, but they're watching the world, come to SNOMED as the central term or vocabulary.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So this one is we don't necessarily even need to show it on the user interface. So let me just say.
Right. Yeah, because have you looked at the SNOMED codes? They're like 6 or 8 digits. They're not user friendly at all.
Right, does that have to be shown in the interface? Right.
Okay. Excellent. So this one, maybe the mapping, somehow we need to use that. Basically, the recommendation here is that use SNOMED codes from the CCDA.
Right. And
or demonstrate that the SNOMED codes from the CCDA are being used.
Right. And you said for you even have the opportunity to parse, like if someone has, hypertension, do you care? Or do you only look for those,
There's only a couple there's only 5, I think it's down, we're only looking at 5 for each type of drug abuse thing now.
Yeah.
So and I'm not sure, I'm not sure how many different categories we have, but there's only 5 types of DSMs for each one of those. So, and I don't know how that works in SNOMED, but I'm guessing, so we'll see how that goes. But there's 5 of these classifications for alcohol, 5 for opioids. It's the same 5 over and over again. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure exactly how SNOMED does that, but anyway.
Do you have a ICD-9 that's equivalent to those 5 that you mentioned?
It's possible. I've not done any mapping. I just assume SNOMED. It uses DSM. Is ICD-9 an option still?
Well, I just wanted, because SNOMED already has crosswalks for ICD-9 to SNOMED. They also have ICD-10 to SNOMED. So there's a crosswalk of the mapping already done that you can incorporate, plug and play, and then you'll be all set.
Yeah, we can check with Dr. Gasfrin on that, but right now I think all we have is DSM.
Okay.
But it's not a huge mapping exercise, regardless.
Correct.
But that's the big thing, is we need to demonstrate that the SNOMED codes from the CCDA are being used.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. ASAM does not currently use RxNorm terminology for its medication.
Do you use any vocabulary for medication in DC or?
I believe, I'm not sure.
NDC codes or?
Yeah, there's about 7 that are cross-mapped. But let's see what we got here.
But RxNorm is the new vocabulary standard. So
like SNOMED,
yeah. So if you're gonna, it'll be needed or be mapped, one or the other.
And so right now, our medication is a free text field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In order for this one to work, we would need to have the ability to, well, again, we could have it codified. If it comes in on the CCDA, this free text field could be populated from the CCDA. We just need to make sure that the concept of this field also exists in the structured format. So yes, list the medications, and there's a free text area, but we'd also need to have a codified version of that concept too. How does that sound to you, or does that make sense to you, Yimei?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So on this one it's similar, but it's demonstrate the SNOMED codes from the, but it'd be RxNorm codes.
Yep.
And so that way we wouldn't necessarily even need to change the software, because the UI could still be the same. But the neat thing is, if you use an EHR, it automatically populates that box.
That's right. Yeah. And you don't need to have that. The user interface shouldn't change, because the RxNorm code is also a nonsensical number.
Okay. Next one is ASAM does not use LOINC for lab results. It doesn't use lab results at all. But that's where Dr. Gasfrin said, boy, the possibility that you could receive lab results is fantastic. And he was thinking in terms of a drug screen, being able to incorporate that with one of the questions. And because there's some questions that right now it asks for the interviewer to kind of say, hey, do you think that they're on something, or some, things like that. Some subjective questions, and Dr. Gasfrin might have some, probably a better feel for where that would go, but I'm thinking that's probably, I'm not sure where those questions are.
Well, I mean, if the labs come in on that CCDA, then, could we, incorporate them in a structured way to generate those alerts?
Well, we have one question saying, are you pregnant? Obviously but I'm thinking he actually has a meaningful use, more meaningful way of using this.
Yeah, the labs are also very structured, meaning it's an HL7 format, and so, not only do they come in as a header fields from the CCDA, but, having...
Oh, that's right. That's right. It has to come in as a lab file, not just in the CCDA, correct? Yeah.
Right. And so, but it is a very structured and established API that you could work with, like a lab core or something, and really, it's done on.
So maybe let us know when we can try and log back in there.
Yeah, try.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected. Goodbye.